Hello again, everybody. Lampini here again today to cover Week 13 of the 2024 NFL season. So we only have a couple more weeks of the regular season left, and there's been a lot of twists and turns in this game in this week. This was the week of the trap game. Several teams, including my own, lost games that they frankly should have won. We'll go over that a little bit when we talk about the Commanders, the Texans, and the Steelers. But those were basically all big trap games that happened. For the week, though, I was 8-5, so I still ended with a positive record, although it was one of my worst weeks in terms of predictions. Still ended above 500, though. And for the year, I am 123-56. So still predicting very, very well. Make sure that everyone gets your DraftKings bets ready and ready in here, so you can make some money come game day. So let's kick things off with Thursday Night Football. Well, this Thursday is particularly special because it's going to be Thanksgiving. So we have 3 games going on, one in the morning slot, one in the afternoon, and one in the evening. The first one isn't going to be much to write home about. We have the Chicago Bears at the Detroit Lions. The Lions are 10-1, and the Bears have lost 5 straight since the dreaded Hail Mary. And they are really, really starting to collapse behind the stretch here. The Bears barely lost to the Minnesota Vikings in overtime when the Vikings kicked a last-second field goal. Caleb Williams had a pretty good game, though. He was 32 of 47, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, 103.1 passer rating. And then DJ Moore had 7 receptions for 106 yards and 1 of those touchdowns. So offense played pretty well, but again, they couldn't get the job done, have dropped their 5th straight game. There's not much to say, really, about the Bears. They are still crumbling, and spoiler, even though this is a divisional matchup, I don't see the Lions losing to them because the Lions have looked like the best team in the league right now, and if any team looks like they're going to take home the Lombardi, it's Detroit because they are winning, and they're winning convincingly every single game that they're in. They beat the Colts 24-6, so again, a good defensive showing, and then the offense did what it could. Jahmyr Gibbs had 2 rushing touchdowns. And then Jared Goff was 26 of 36 for 269 yards, 93.4 passer rating. So a good performance there by Jared Goff. He's still kind of playing the game manager. One of the best you win with quarterbacks in the league right now. But the whole team is good, and that's why they are dominating like they are. It's going to be a pretty easy one for me. The Lions always play on Thanksgiving. They always get beat on Thanksgiving. Not going to happen this time. They are going to win. They're going to improve to 11-1. And listen, if they make it to 16-1, you're looking at one of the best teams ever. If the Lions go 16-1 and they win the Super Bowl, you are looking at one of the best all-time teams in NFL history. And who would have thought it would be the Detroit Lions? But I'm going with the Lions on this one. Next up in the afternoon slot, we have the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys, 2 NFC East bottom dwellers. However, the Cowboys did beat the Commanders in one of the most ridiculous games I have ever watched in my entire life. So I'll talk about it when I go over the Commanders game, but not much to write home about this. I think the Giants are the worst team in the league right now. When you saw what Tommy DeVito was able to do with this team, it just goes to show that Daniel Jones wasn't necessarily the problem. I was looking up saying that teams are lining up in droves to sign Daniel Jones. I guess as a backup, maybe as a starter. There must be something that we don't see that NFL scouts do see, because Daniel Jones is going to get another job in the NFL, which I'm really, really surprised about. I don't really know what it is. I can understand Daniel Jones being like a good team guy. Like he studies his film. He is good in the QB room. He's good with his coaches. All this stuff, he just doesn't put it together on the field, and maybe coaches think they can mold him and actually build him into the quarterback they want him to be. But the rest of the league seems to think that he's a winner despite everything we've seen. So I don't know. I just heard that, the Packers are looking, or not the Packers, the Jets are looking to get rid of Aaron Rodgers, and Daniel Jones is going to get another shot with another team. But I'm going with the Cowboys on this one purely because they have more high-end talent. Cooper Rush is a very good backup. He kind of does what he needs to do to win the game. Micah Parsons, Deron Bland, they're back. They came back in the game against Washington. I think the Cowboys are going to win. It's not going to be a very interesting game, though. Now, this next game is primed to be pretty interesting. We have the Miami Dolphins at the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are 8-3. They're looking like a very, very solid wild card team right now. But as for the Miami Dolphins, this is really the story of the Dolphins. Ever since Tua Tagovailoa came back, this is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen because everyone gives Tua crap. He's got a weak arm. He's physically limited. This, that, and the other thing. But when he plays, the Dolphins win. They were 2-6, I believe, when Tua was injured. And they have now rattled off 3 straight victories, and they're now 5-6. So they are looking like the top contender to sneak into the wild card if one of these other teams falters, right? They have to dig themselves out of a really big hole, but if they win this game and they move up to 6-6, it's theirs to lose. Tua Tagovailoa was 29 of 40 for 317 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 128.9 passer rating. And then Jalen Waddle had 8 of those receptions for 144 yards and a touchdown. I mean, Tyreek Hill is having an off year for sure, but the Dolphins have been night and day without Tua Tagovailoa. So I think Tua right now is on the low scale of you win because of my quarterback tier. He's in the you win because of tier. He's just very low on there. I just think he has the intangibles up here to find even the open man, to be accurate, to make good choices. I don't know what it is, but anytime he plays, they do well. As for the Packers, they throttled the San Francisco 49ers 38-10. Jordan Love, 13 of 23, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, 107.7 passer rating. And then Josh Jacobs had 26 carries for 106 yards for 3 rushing touchdowns. So a good showing there by Josh Jacobs. This has really been the year of the running back. You look at Derrick Henry coming to a different team, Saquon Barkley coming to a different team, Josh Jacobs going to a different team, Aaron Jones going to a different team. A lot of these running backs that were traded in the offseason, Joe Mixon is another one, where they're making a case that, hey, listen, the running back position is valuable. You put us on a different team, but we're still going to thrive. In this game, though, I am going to go with the Packers over the Dolphins. The Dolphins have looked very, very good, but I think the Packers have just looked better. They're 8-3. They've been really, really, really solid. And the only couple games that they've lost is early in the season. So they are getting stronger as the season goes on. I know that the same goes for the Dolphins, but I think the Packers are going to do just a little bit more to win, but it's going to be a very, very good game. So next up, we have a Friday night game, or Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. We have the Kansas City Chiefs at the Las Vegas Raiders. So the big story with the Chiefs is they barely lost out to the Carolina Panthers, almost being another team that fell into the trap game motif of Week 12. Patrick Mahomes had probably his best game of the season, 27 of 37, 269 yards, 3 touchdowns, 120.2 passer rating. And that's why I wasn't concerned when Patrick Mahomes was having a rough start to the season. He has been doing significantly better after they beat the Raiders again, beat the Raiders a second time. He's had 3 touchdowns in back-to-back games. Since that game, he's thrown for 12 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So he's starting to really get back into the swing of things. I have his page opened up right now to see where he is, but that last game probably helped his stats a lot. So let me just see where he's at here. So he has 18 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, and he has a 92.3 passer rating. So he's still not having a super good season, but we'll see how he finishes. Just remember that last year he threw for 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns to 14 interceptions, and statistically that was his worst season. So we'll see what happens now. But the thing again with the Chiefs is they barely lost to the Panthers, but I think that has more to do with the Panthers starting to get their stride a little bit, and Bryce Young starting to look a little bit better. But I do think the Chiefs are getting stronger as the season goes on, and the Raiders are a washed team. They're right down there with the Giants as one of the worst teams in the league. They need a top 5 draft pick, but this is just not any new news with the Raiders. They've always been this. So I'm going with the Chiefs on this one. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win pretty easily. I know it's a divisional round matchup. It's in Arrowhead, but The Raiders just aren't a good enough team from a talent standpoint to beat the two-time defending Super Bowl champions. So I'm going with the Chiefs. Okay, so next up, we are going to go against the Chargers at Falcons. Two cursed NFL franchises, but one is doing a lot better than the other. The Falcons are coming off of a bye after their worst game of the season, where they lost to the Broncos 38-6. Not good at all. Kirk Cousins was 18 of 27 for 173 yards and an interception. He has played average. He's thrown 4 touchdown passes in 2 games. Other than that, he's looked all right. I mean, as a 36-year-old quarterback that was supposed to take the Falcons to the next level, he's kind of done that. But right now, they're in first place in their division, but right now, it's them and the Bucs, and the Bucs, I think, are a better team on paper, and the Bucs just got back Mike Evans. And if you see what the Buccaneers did to the Giants when we go over their game, they might be in some trouble. As for the Chargers, they played a very hard-fought game against the Ravens, and they lost 30-23. I think the Chargers are a very good team. They have the best defense in the league right now. Justin Herbert is firing on all cylinders. He's showing us that he's still arguably a top 5 quarterback in the league with his talent, and Jim Harbaugh is really unlocking his ability. This is a team that's going to be very scary in the playoffs and can make some upsets happen. So because of that reason, I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think that the Falcons aren't talented enough to upset them. Coming off the bye might help, but the Chargers are going to be very, very hungry to follow up a win after losing to the Ravens. So I'm going with the Chargers. Next up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals, another team that came off of a bye, and the Steelers lost a trap game to Jameis Winston in the Browns on Thursday night. Russell Wilson had another really good game. He was 21 of 28, 270 yards and a touchdown, 116.7 passer rating. The Steelers are a lot like the Chargers, where they're sneaky good, and I think adding Russell Wilson is something that's really going to give Mike Tomlin a run for Coach of the Year, making that decision. He saw Justin Fields doing well in the offense, but he saw that he wasn't able to finish drives, and he put in Russell Wilson, and it's like a night and day difference. They ran Justin Fields in a couple gadget plays that didn't end up working, which I'm not really sure why they did that. I think they see a lot of Cordell Stewart in Justin Fields. For those of you who don't know, he was a quarterback for the Steelers in the late 90s and early 2000s, and they called him Slash because he would go out for passes. They'd give him the ball to carry, and he was the quarterback. He was one of those Swiss Army knife players. But, so the Steelers lost. They're going to want to come back against the Bengals, but the Steelers have a very tough schedule going forward. They pretty much have all their divisional round matchups after this, for the rest of the season. The Bengals lost out to the Chargers 34-27. They were losing the majority of that game. It's a bit deceiving. The Bengals turned it on late on in the game, and they ended up falling short. Joe Burrow, once again, had a great game. 28 of 50 for 356 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, a 98.4 passer rating. And then T. Higgins had 9 receptions for 148 yards and a touchdown. I don't know. And then Jamar Chase had 2 receiving touchdowns as well. So I think it's just a mix of the Bengals' defense being terrible because the Bengals' offense is firing on all cylinders. They have never looked better. And Joe Burrow is making a case. He's making a case for Offensive Player of the Year, not necessarily MVP. There's a lot of different MVP, Offensive Player of the Year candidates. Jamar Chase is one, Joe Burrow is one, Derrick Henry is one, Saquon Barkley is one. Some people are saying Saquon should be in the MVP category. I think that's BS. If Derrick Henry is not going to win the MVP in 2020, well, Aaron Rodgers was really good. I don't know. Maybe Saquon could win, but he really is going to have to blow us away with some really good stats. If Christian McCaffrey didn't win MVP last year, which he should have. But regardless, I digress. I think the Steelers are going to win. They need to recover a victory, especially with the Ravens winning. The Ravens are knocking on their door for the division title. And I think that the Steelers are going to see that. I think the Bengals' defense is their defense is such a liability. It doesn't matter how good their offense is. This is not a good matchup for the Bengals because the Steelers have a very good defense, which I think is going to stymie the Bengals' offense just a little bit. And then the Steelers' offense, which is very underrated, pretty above average slightly, is going to be able to take advantage of a bad Bengals defense, and they're going to outscore the Bengals. And I think the Steelers are going to win this game. So next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals at the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are 9-2. The Cardinals are 6-5. A lot of people were very concerned that the Vikings were going to start sliding after their bye, after they lost 2 straight games. That hasn't exactly happened. They have come back and they beat the Bears 30-27 in overtime, like I previously mentioned, and they are looking pretty good. Sam Darnold was 22 of 34 for 330 yards, 2 touchdowns, 116.1 passer rating. It's a good showing by him. Aaron Jones had 22 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown. And then Jordan Addison had 8 receptions for 162 yards and a touchdown. And then TJ Hawkinson had 7 receptions for 114 yards. So some good showings by skill position players on the Vikings. The Cardinals are coming off of a bye as well, and they lost a very bad game to the Seahawks, 16-6. The Cardinals have proven to be a very, very inconsistent team. I remember I was saying that they were rattling off a couple wins and they were looking really strong, but they did not look good against the Seahawks. That whole division is still wide open. Like, I think the Cardinals and the Seahawks still have the same record. So the Cardinals have a lot to play for. I just think that they're still a little too inexperienced, despite Kyler Murray having a very good bounce-back season. He's not going to win comeback player of the year, though. Spoiler alert. I think it's going to be Russell Wilson that wins that. So I am going to go with the Vikings on this one. They have proven that they are a very good team still. We thought they were going to be really, really bad, but it goes to show what good coaching and a good defense can do. I think the Vikings are going to win this one. They're going to beat the Cardinals. Okay, this game doesn't really matter a whole lot. We have the Indianapolis Colts at the New England Patriots. I am not really going to talk too much about this game because, like, Anthony Richardson didn't have much to write home about. The Colts didn't have much to write home about. They are experiencing a lost season right now, and it's only a matter of time before we start wondering when they pull the plug on the Anthony Richardson experiment. They probably have to give him one more year, but, like, it sucks because he hasn't really shown a lot of development. He's just shown that he's an athletic guy that's not a very good quarterback. Shocker here, I am going to go with the Patriots. I think Drake May has really shown some good development, and he's shown that he's going to be the future there. And they have gotten a couple wins here and there. They lost to the better team in the Miami Dolphins, but I think they are going to beat the Colts. The Patriots are cooking something. I think they just need to get a more talented roster, get some good players. But I don't think Gerard Mayo is the coach that's going to lead them there. But I do think that they're going to get somewhere with Drake May as their quarterback. I'm going with the Patriots. So for this next game, we have the Seattle Seahawks at the New York Jets. The Seahawks, I take that back. The Cardinals weren't on a bye. The Seahawks are coming off of a 16-6 win that brings them into first place in the NFC West. I don't really take them very seriously. They're not a very strong contender, though. But, you know, it is what it is. The Jets are the Jets. Like, they're one of the most talented rosters in the NFL, but they have such low morale. They have no coaching. They have no management, no front office. And I think it's only a matter of time before Aaron Rodgers gets benched. That being said, Aaron Rodgers had probably his best game of the season. He was 22 of 29 for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns, 114.7 passer rating. So when you look at the stats, Rodgers looks good. Like, I'm looking up right now how his stats are for the season. So he has thrown for 2,400 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 88.9 passer rating. So he hasn't played bad, but if you all remember in like 2017, 2018, 2019, before his back-to-back MVP seasons, he's kind of playing like how he was there. For example, in 2018, played all 16 games, but he threw for 25 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. The following year, 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Those are still better than this year in his age 41 season. But I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to get another job after this. I think he's cooked unless he goes to a good team, assumes the role of game manager, and just admits like, hey, I'm just a quarterback now. I can't have influence over who's hired and fired. I can't have my best friends come over, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, and Davante Adams. Like, those are all his friends. Like, we can't tailor make things to him like that. And what sucks is if Aaron Rodgers gets cut, Davante Adams is once again stuck on a team that he went to for his quarterback. I mean, Davante Adams has his own thing going on. He's gonna have to figure out what he's gonna do after this, but. I'm going to go with Seahawks on this one. This is a very easy win for the Seahawks to kind of get ahead in the NFC West If the Cardinals end up losing, that's going to help them a lot in their space for the division crown. I'm going with the Seahawks in this one. I think they're going to win. All right, guys, it's finally time to talk about the Washington Commanders as they face the 3-8 Tennessee Titans. It's at home again. That was one of the toughest losses I've ever seen as a Commanders fan. The game was pretty boring to kick things off. Defense was doing well, but the offense wasn't working. And I think a lot of that has to do with the Cliff Kingsbury play calling. He had very, very standard plays early on in the season. People were saying he's running college plays, this, that, and the whole thing. And the issue is, I think we showed our cards too early, and we have film now. Our teams have film on us, and our offense isn't working like it used to. So we need to make some adjustments to try and do something. But that last game was absolutely absurd. Too many 3-and-outs. Now, I will say this. Jaden Daniels looked back to normal. He was running really well. He was making some good throws, but there were some key drops by Noah Brown. It hit him right in the numbers, and he couldn't pick up the reception. But Jaden Daniels looked like himself. So he was 25 of 38 for 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and an 82.7 passer rating. Those 2 interceptions are very deceptive because one of them was a bobbled catch, and the other one was him trying to throw another Hail Mary. So those 2 interceptions don't really matter too much. One of the touchdowns was the long pass to Terry McLaurin, which was, I loved to see that. I love seeing Terry McLaurin have these big highlight reel plays. He's going to have the best season of his career right now, but it shouldn't have even come to that. So the game really fell off the rails in the fourth quarter when it was 13-9. We had stopped them. We had stopped the Cowboys, and they settled for a field goal. It was 13-9. I'm like, all right, now we got to move the ball down the field and score a touchdown. The first play of scrimmage, John Bates fumbles it. We pass the ball, and I want to say he was crossing midfield, and he freaking fumbles the ball. Cowboys are in good field position. Defense is tired. They had no time to rest, and they scored. It becomes 20-9. Then chaos starts. They ran down the field and kicked the field goal, which was good. Had a 3-and-out. They came back. They drove the ball down the field very quickly, which I think is another good testament to Jaden Daniels that he was able to even do that in the first place. I know the Cowboys were playing prevent defense, but it's easier said than done. Move the ball down the field. I want to say there was 3 minutes left, and it was 17-20. And then the Turpin kick return was just, that was an even bigger punch to the gut. But then Terry McLaurin had the 86-yard touchdown that would have tied the game, and then Chris Seibert missed the extra point. So it was one of the most infuriating games I've ever had to watch. It was very, very frustrating. But I'm trying to find any type of positivity here. They at least showed that they had heart and that they weren't willing to give up. So I think that shows a lot about the culture, that they kept fighting through the whole thing. Defense did look good until things fell off the rails, you know. But they've lost 3 straight games. They were 7-2. They're now 7-5. 7-5 is still a good record. That's what we were in 2022. And then we dropped a bunch and ended like 8-7-1 or something like that. So this is our last game before the bye. We need to win this game. Go 8-5. We were very fortunate that this loss and a Cardinals win or a Seahawks win. The Cardinals are 6-5. They're the closest team to threaten our playoff spot. We absolutely have to win this game to stay in the playoff race, and there's no reason why we shouldn't. The Titans have a good defense. They're second in the league in yards allowed, but they're 27th in points allowed. So like the Titans beat the Texans, sure, but we cannot lose to them. We cannot lose to 2 straight 3-and-win teams, and then the season's over. If we lost to the Cowboys, and that was a big punch to the gut, because that's a team we should have beaten. But if we lose to the Titans, we'll fall to 7-6, and I'm sorry to say our season is going to be over. We're not really going to go anywhere. Without that Hail Mary, we are 6-6. We are an average team. And I think that's more so where we are now that we've come back down to earth. Now, I still think that we're doing very good for a rebuilding team. We only had 4 wins last year, and I think we've greatly exceeded expectations in terms of our rebuild. And because of that, there's a heightened expectations. Marshawn Lattimore has yet to play for us. And I think when we get Marshawn Lattimore, it's going to be a lot better for us. We desperately need this bye week to get healthy for this last stretch of the season. But I also think that it needs to start with us beating the Tennessee Titans. Going into the bye, zapping a 3-game losing streak, winning this game, and going to 8-5, we're still good, right? We're still good. And I think we're going to win. Like, the tough thing is, like, I just think, like, we can't lose. Like, the Titans looked good last week. They did. But we can't lose to them. We just can't. And maybe I'm predicting with my heart more than my brain, but I'm going with the Washington Commanders on this one. It is a must-win. We cannot drop 4 straight going into the bye. We cannot have a collapse like that. We can't have a collapse like the Bears are collapsing. You know what I mean? There's too much positivity going on with this team right now. Because we were 7-2 at one point. Sure, we had an easy schedule, and maybe we're coming down to earth a little bit, but I see no reason why we can't end 10-7 or even 11-6. And that's what it's going to need to take for us to get to the playoffs, so I'm going with Washington. Next up, we have the Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Houston Texans are having a very similar season to us. They lost to the Tennessee Titans. This was another trap game, like I was saying, at home. The Texans as a whole are having a big sophomore slump. So too is C.J. Stroud. He was 20 of 33 for 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 78.7 passer rating. Not the best showing by them. And they are still 7-5, much like we are, but they have not been a very impressive 7-5, and they're very fortunate that their division is such dog water. Like, the Jaguars are 2-9, the Titans are 3-8, the Colts are their biggest threat, and they're 5-7. So it's a very, very easy division, and I do think the Texans are going to beat the Jaguars because they're one of the worst teams in the league. The Jaguars are coming off of a bye where they suffered the worst loss in franchise history, losing 52-6 against the Detroit Lions. So this is a big get-right game for the Texans, much like the Titans game is a get-right game for the Washington Commanders. I'm going with the Texans. I think they're going to win. It's one of those ones where they have to win. So I'm going with them. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Rams at the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are coming back very well from a lot of their injuries, and now they are looking like the team that we saw in weeks 1 and 2. They scored 35 points against the Cleveland Browns. They're coming off of a bye, so this is in week 11. Derek Carr with 21 of 27, 248 yards, 2 touchdowns, 129.6 passer rating. And then Taysom Hill really went off. He had 3 rushing touchdowns, 138 rushing yards. It's crazy at 34 years old that Taysom Hill can still be that gadget player he was when they still had Drew Brees. He's a very unique player in that regard. Not a Hall of Famer, but very interesting player in that regard. The Rams lost out to the Eagles 37-20. I think that's just an example of them losing to a better team. But the Rams are still in contention for their division. They're 5-6. The Seahawks and Cardinals are 6-5. So a win here could bring them back up. Matthew Stafford was 24 of 36 for 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, 104.3 passer rating. And then Kyron Williams and Cooper Kupp both had receiving touchdowns, and then Puka Nacua had over 100 receiving yards. So their offense is still the same powerhouse that it's always been. And I'm going to go with the Rams on this one. They have a lot more to play for. I think the Saints are technically, mathematically not eliminated, but that division is for Tampa Bay. It really is. Like I think the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield are too good of a team, and I think the Rams are going to win. The Saints played valiantly against the Browns, and I think that they are going to show just a little too much for them to not want to get rid of Derek Carr. And I think in the long run, that's going to hurt them. But yeah, I'm going with the Rams on that one. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Carolina Panthers. So the Panthers played admirably, shall we say, against the Kansas City Chiefs, losing out 30-27. Bryce Young was 21 of 35 for 263 yards, a touchdown, and a 92.9 passer rating. So not a bad showing by Bryce Young. And then Chuba Hubbard had a rushing touchdown. He's having a very good season. But the real stars of the show were the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They beat the Giants 30-7. not much to say about that. That is just like a crazy stat. 4 different players scored rushing touchdowns, including Baker Mayfield. Rachaad White, Bucky Irving, and Sean Tucker were the other 3 that scored rushing touchdowns. Baker Mayfield did not score a touchdown, but he threw for almost 300 yards. A good showing by Baker. Like, the Buccaneers are going to win this one. The Panthers have shown that they're making some progress with their roster and Bryce Young, but I still think Bryce Young is a below-average starter. He'll have good games every now and then, but I also think that he's just not as good as some of these other guys. So I'm still going to go with the Buccaneers on this one. I think they're going to win. They are vying for that division spot that the Falcons currently have, and I think that they are a better team than the Falcons, and I think they're going to go on a hot streak and eventually take it. So I'm going with the Bucs. So this next game is going to be very, very exciting. We have a potential Super Bowl matchup here. We have the Philadelphia Eagles at the Baltimore Ravens. The Eagles are really, really getting a lot of momentum, and they are starting to come back and be what we all expected them to be. Jalen Hurts had a good game, but the real star of the show was Saquon Barkley. He had 26 carries for 255 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. That's insane. He is making a strong campaign for Offensive Player of the Year and maybe MVP. I think he is the most valuable player on that offense, and he's really, really showing what potential he had all this time that was being held back by the Giants. As for the Ravens, I'll be honest, I didn't expect the Ravens to win yesterday, Tuesday at the time of recording this. They played Monday in the Harbaugh Bowl against the Chargers. I did not expect the Ravens to win. I thought the Ravens were a step down from what they were last year when they were the de facto best team in the league. This was a statement win for them. Lamar Jackson was 16 of 22 for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns, 126.5 passer rating. And then not to be outdone by Saquon, Derrick Henry had 24 carries for 140 yards. He did zap the streak of having a touchdown in every single one of his games, but 140 yards, good showing by Derrick Henry. As I've said a lot of times, he's my favorite player in the league, so I root for him to do really, really well. It looks like his Offensive Player of the Year campaign is not looking very strong right now, but I think that he still has the potential to be an all-pro running back, along with Saquon Barkley. I think it's Derrick Henry and Saquon and then everybody else. So I think he's still going to have a very good year. I think looking at it, he's on pace for 1,800 rushing yards and 1,900 yards from scrimmage. So he may eventually bust over that and get 2,000 scrimmage yards and potentially 20 rushing touchdowns, which would probably be his best season to date. But this is going to be a very, very interesting game. These are 2 very good teams, and it is in Baltimore. It's going to be a fantastic game to watch, but I'm going to go with the Eagles. I think the Eagles are a stronger team, and they just look unstoppable with Saquon, and also Jalen Hurts is having a very good – this is like – they are reminiscent of the 2022 Eagles here, and the 2022 Eagles looked like a powerhouse that was Super Bowl or bust, and that's what they're looking like now. It's going to be a very good game, but I do think the Eagles are going to squeeze out a victory. Okay, so now we have the Sunday night game. We have the San Francisco 49ers at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are coming off a bye week where they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And Josh Allen made his Superman run to the end zone to get that rushing touchdown. Incredible showing by Josh Allen. He's who we all know he is. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, put it simply. The 49ers got embarrassed. Brandon Allen was playing, and he played like a backup quarterback. The 49ers Super Bowl window looks to have closed. This is a very, very disappointing season for them. And I don't like they are still in the running because their division is so weak, but they're 5-6, and they are just not looking like the team that they were last year or the year before that, or the year in 2019, or the year in like any of these years where they made it to the conference championship in 4 of the last 5 years. They are not looking like that, and they will go down if this is the end of the San Francisco 49ers reign of dominance with Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy and all that stuff. They're going to go down as one of these teams that blew it. Like, they're up there with the Buffalo Bills, and they had so much success and have no rings to show for it. So I am going to go with the Buffalo Bills. I think they're going to walk away with a victory against the San Francisco 49ers. They're going to win. Now we come to the Monday night game, the Cleveland Browns at the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are 7-5, and they are looking very, very strong. They have gotten stronger as the season has progressed, and it's all because of Bo Nix. Bo Nix has gotten better as the season has gone on, and he is looking to steal the Offensive Rookie of the Year campaign from Jaden Daniels. I think it's between the two of them. Bo Nix was 25 of 42 for 273 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 94.6 passer rating. Both of those touchdowns went to Courtland Sutton. He had 8 receptions for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, like I said, both of them went to Courtland Sutton. Jameis Winston willed his team to victory against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the snow. Not a lot of significance to the season, but a lot of significance to the Cleveland Browns and Jameis Winston. One of the career-defining wins for him. I think Jameis Winston is a good starter, and he's injected a lot of life into the Cleveland Browns, and I personally love to see it. I like Jameis Winston, even though he's had accusations of his own. People seem to forget about it, which I think is kind of funny. But I'm just going to cut to the chase. The Broncos are going to win. The AFC, which one is that? The AFC West is looking like an incredible division with the Broncos and Chargers and Chiefs. So I am going to go with the Broncos. I think they're going to win. So that concludes my predictions, everybody. Like I said, we're not really going to analyze point differentials as much, and we're going to go straight into the power rankings. However, I will list off a couple really notable point differentials right now. The Bills are still the number 1 in point differentials at 106. The Ravens are number 2 at plus 70. The Detroit Lions have a positive 177 point differential. So they're on pace for a positive 200 point differential. And if they go 16-1, you're looking at one of the best regular seasons of all time. The Washington Commanders still have a positive 57 point differential. But right now, it's the Lions, Eagles, Vikings, and Packers as the top 4. And then the top 4 in the AFC, Bills, Ravens, Chargers, Steelers. So I guess I did kind of go over the point differentials there. But we're going to blast through and go to the power rankings before we go over the playoff picture. Boom. So Lions are number 1, as always. They are the best team in the league right now, by far. Highest point differential, best record. Not much to say. They're number 1. Number 2. Now, it's hard for me to not pick the Chiefs. They're 10-1, and they still find ways to win, but their point differential says otherwise. But I am still going to go with the Chiefs. They have won so many games right now, going down the wire. I think it's just one of those things where the Chiefs know how to do it. They know how to win these close games down the wire. They've done it enough times where it's not coincidental anymore. They are that team, and they're well coached. Mahomes plays his best. So I'm going by record and not by point differential, and I'm going with the Chiefs. At number 3, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. They have really, really jumped up these power rankings in the last couple weeks. And like I said, they're playing like their old 2022 form, which is very, very dangerous. So I'm going to go with them at number 3. Number 4, I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. 106 point differential, 9-2. Incredibly strong team. They are looking like the cream of the crop in the AFC, along with the Kansas City Chiefs. And then when we get to number 5, I'm struggling now. We got the Minnesota Vikings, we have the Green Bay Packers, the Ravens and Chargers, Steelers, and even Broncos are all teams that could get this number 5 spot. I am ultimately going to go with the Minnesota Vikings for their win-loss record and their point differential. I was concerned that they were falling off a little bit after the bye, but they've righted the ship. They're a well-run team. Sam Darnold has the potential to have a Geno Smith-type career where his career gets revitalized and he gets a couple years as a starter. I can't imagine J.J. McCarthy starting in 2025 with what Sam Darnold has been able to be for the Vikings this year. So there are my power rankings. Lions number 1, Chiefs number 2, Eagles number 3, Bills number 4, Vikings number 5. So those are my power rankings, and now we go on to the playoff picture. A different Instagram page's graphic today, but I really like the look of this one, so I'm going to go with it. As you can see, Chiefs and Lions are the first round buys, and they are both, you don't want to face either one of those teams. The Chiefs look beatable, but I think, again, like I said, it's one of those things where they know how to win these close games. I don't think they're really as beatable as some say, and the Lions just look like a juggernaut. If the Lions end up winning the season, like I said, if they end up becoming 16-1 and winning the Super Bowl, you're looking at one of the best teams of all time. You're looking like this is 85 Bears level good. You know what I mean? So that all remains to be seen, though. Number 2 seed, we have the Eagles, Seahawks, and Falcons are 3 and 4 respectively. They're both at 6 and 5 though, and they have a lot of teams nipping at their heels. Most notably, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 5 and 6 are nipping at the Falcons' heels, and then the Seahawks have the Cardinals at 6 and 5. The only reason the Seahawks are better is because they won that game. And the Rams and 49ers are both 5 and 6. So that division, those two divisions can go to anybody. And I find it funny that the 5, 6, and 7 seeds are all better than the Seahawks and Falcons. Vikings are 9 and 2, incredibly strong team. In any other situation, they would be the number 1 seed. Packers, same thing. Any other division, they'd be winning the division. And at the number 7 seed, we have the Washington Commanders. This is why they need to win. They could afford to lose last week and still have that number 7 seed, but now they can't, because if the Cardinals win, then they are, if the Cardinals win, then, and the Commanders lose, Cardinals have the better record, they take the 7th seed, and the Commanders are out of the playoff race. Pretty pathetic considering they were number 2 seed at one point. That's why they need to win. That's why they need to win. As for the AFC, Chiefs are the number 1 seed, Bills are number 2. It's a lot more clear cut. Like no one is threatening the Texans for their division. The only one that's kind of in threat right now are the Steelers, because the Ravens are 8 and 4, so they're a game behind. So it's going to be whoever wins the division and gets home field advantage for them. The Chargers and Broncos are 7 and 4 and 7 and 5 respectively. So I don't really see any other, like, you look at the in the hunt for the AFC. The only team that's really making a lot of noise are the Miami Dolphins, and they're 5 and 6. So, like, a lot needs to happen for the Dolphins to backdoor themselves into the playoffs, right? Because, like, who's going to collapse? Is it going to be the Chargers? Is it going to be the Broncos? Like, I don't see that happening. So I think the AFC is more clear cut with their division, with their playoff standings. I think a lot can still happen in the NFC, most notably with the NFC West and South. Who knows who's going to win those divisions? And I pray to God that the wild card stays the same, because if it doesn't, then that means the Commanders got bounced. But that's what we're looking at for the playoff picture. The Washington Commanders need to get their shit together. They need to beat the Tennessee Titans, move back up to 8 and 5, and then we can breathe a sigh of relief going into the bye week that no team is really going to threaten us. Because even if the Cardinals win these next 2 games and they're 8 and 5 and we're 8 and 5, we still beat them, so we have the better head-to-head record. So that is my review of Week 13. A lot's going on, guys. When we make it to the race to the playoffs, certain teams collapse, certain teams step up. I just hope Washington isn't one of those teams that collapses, and I hope they step up. So I'll see you guys next week.